Okay, we are live. We're ready to go.
All right, thank you. I will call the Tuesday, May 4th Public Safety Committee meeting.
I believe I'm signed on.
So we'll do
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, roll call. Candace Montague.
Here.
Lori. Here. Doug.
here.
Randy.
Here.
And I do not see Kevin.
So if Kevin joins, we'll just know what time.
Short until it's our time.
Pledge of allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone to address the PSC on any issue. Please observe the time limit of 3 minutes. While the PSC encourages input from residents, it may not discuss or act on any issue that is not duly noticed on the agenda. Do we have anyone sign up for comments, Chief?
Nobody signed up for comments. I didn't receive any emails, so no.
We will move on to approval of minutes from April 6, 2021 PSC meeting.
I'll move that we accept the minutes.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll make a motion.
So we got a motion and a second. Any discussion on approving the minutes from last meeting? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed signify by saying the same. Motion passes unanimously. Report of Public Safety Committee officers. I'll go first as a chairperson. I want to thank Lori Zander for her efforts leading the PSC the last couple of years. Thank you. I want to welcome Candace Montague to our team.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you being a part of the Public Safety Committee. Also want to mention today, May 4th, is International Firefighters Day. So I definitely want to thank our great local volunteer team that we have on Cross Plains and all the firefighter professionals. Any members with report on? Okay, report of first responders. Do we have the EMS chief?
Yes, we do. Yeah, you are on, Erica, if you want to unmute.
All right. Hey, everyone. It's nice to be back. I have a small break in night classes, so I can actually be at this meeting tonight. Not a ton to update on. We've had 31 calls for service for the month of April. COVID, there's still a bunch of positive tests popping up, but they've noticed the biggest increase is in 18 to 22-year-olds, and they attribute that to all of the student testing going on at UW now that class is back in session, and just more of that in-person testing that's kind of being filtered through UW, but then the results are being sent to public health. The Alliant Energy Center, I'm sure everyone has heard by now, but they were made a federal testing and vaccination site. Everyone 16 and older is now eligible for the vaccination. They still have the Pfizer vaccines, and they are no longer needing an appointment to get in. They're still recommending appointments be made just to make sure you lock in your time and for scheduling. But if anyone is looking for a vaccine and hasn't been able to get it anywhere else, you can go to the Alliant Energy Center. The Walgreens and Cross Plains, I believe, has been administering the Moderna vaccine just in case anyone has any preferences. And as of right now, just over 60% of eligible people in Dane County have been vaccinated per public health. So that's pretty exciting. I haven't heard any more about any possible like booster vaccines that they've kind of been tossing around. I think they're still trying to figure out which manufacturer, which vaccine might need the booster, but they don't have any definitive answers on that yet. Call-wise, we haven't really seen any uptick in our service for COVID-related calls. Dane County Comm Center has actually stopped a lot of the COVID screening that they were doing when COVID was running rampant last year, mostly because now with vaccines, a lot of people have already had COVID. We kind of got to the point where we were just assuming everyone had COVID. They've stopped a lot of those screening questions, which is kind of nice because now it kind of allows us to go back to our normal patient care. And if someone has a history of COPD or chronic bronchitis or emphysema and they're having difficulty breathing, it's probably because of that, not necessarily COVID at this point in time. We're still wearing masks on every call, surgical masks for everything. If it is a significant respiratory call or a P&B, we upgrade to the N95s. Still sticking with all of our decon, both for our ambulance and equipment and our personnel. It worked really well last year, and we're just going to stick with it until we hear otherwise. I think that's all I have, unless anyone has any questions.
Just a quick question. How are you doing staff-wise?
Staffing is fine. We still have not been out of service in over a year now due to staffing. We've had tiny breaks in service, but that was due to needing to decon after COVID calls, and that was maybe a 15-minute gap, but we didn't miss any calls or anything. And we still have pagers on. We would still get paged for that. It's just the spray that we use works the best if it can sit for 20 minutes. And then our crew members would shower up quick, change uniform, get stuff tossed in the wash. So that way we're preventing spread if we had a possible COVID patient. But staffing's been fine. We're still looking for volunteers, still actively recruiting, which I know is always an ongoing process. But nothing so far has affected our in-service.
Right, thank you.
Thank you for the report, Erica. Cross Plains Fire Chief, Justin?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot this evening. So far in 2021, we've had 37 calls for service. I don't have the breakdown by township. I wasn't able to get into that report today. Other than that, nothing out of the ordinary in those calls. This past month, April has been a busy month for training, or training ending, I guess, for the kind of the end of the semester. We had 5 members pass their entry level class in April. That's a 60-hour class that those firefighters, and actually they went a little over 60 because they were able to join with Black Earth on a house burn that they did out on Highway 78 in March, I believe it was. So 5 members at 60 hours in their class. That's their entry level class. That's like the baseline class that they have to take. So we'll start putting them more through their paces, getting them more involved as time allows. Very good group of individuals that got through that class. We also had 6 other members complete the fire officer class in April. 3 of them are currently officers. It's just another stepping stone type class. That's a 40-hour class, and this year was done online, which with all online classes had some of its trials and tribulations, and but it was great that they were able to get through that. They exceeded their 40 hours as well. A lot of weekends, homework, that kind of stuff they had to do, other online videos and seminars they had to do as part of that class. Other than that, we're still looking to recruit members, kind of an ongoing thing as well with us. We have space for at least 5 members that we're going to do. Hopefully put them through, get them on in August, and then get them into class through Madison College starting in September. Other than that, the welcome rain yesterday was kind of nice. Hopefully the risk of fire is going to start going down a little bit. It's been a worry. We haven't really had much of for out of control fires, knock on wood, this spring, considering the high winds, high dry periods that we've had. I think the people are realizing how dry it really is. So other than that, that's all I have.
Anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Welcome the 5 new members, and congratulations to the 6 officers.
Yep.
Cross Plains Police Chief Tony.
Okay, all right. So this month we had a total of 232 calls for service. We are at 1,006 calls this year. If you remember last year, we were at 2,324 calls. So we're already halfway, almost halfway there, and we are only 4 months in. So you can tell how busy we have been. Our calls continue to be the same type of calls, a lot of local violations, local complaints with regards to ordinances, animal complaints. Our assist EMS is up, our check properties are up, information calls continue to be high. The 4 cases, or actually 5 cases of highlight for this month is we had a 8th offense OWI after the person crashed into coaches. And so we were able to identify them after they fled and able to make that arrest. That is going through court. We had 2 sexual assaults of children reported to us. We are still working through that investigation. We do have a suspect involved in that case. We had a child pornography case reported to us by the Internet Child Task Force that we are part of. So that came to us from Department of Justice. We are working on that case. We do have a suspect, and I'm comfortable that we will have that matter resolved as well. The other thing that you might have heard of was I was involved in a high-speed chase on the 27th. We received a report of a theft at Quick Trip. The gentleman fled the Quick Trip, headed out on Church Street. So I started patrol to see if I could find him. It gave us a description of a white Pontiac, no license plates. And then I ended up finding him on Springfield Road. I initiated a traffic stop. He did pull over. I noticed though, before I got out of the car, that his taillights kept coming on, which, you know, my experience led me to believe that that was the car was still in drive and not in park. So that was a threat to me, and I just wasn't very comfortable. So I decided I opened the door to see what he was going to do, just without getting out of my car. And the moment I opened my door, he took off. So chased him down Church Street. He turned on Main Street. Thank God there wasn't much traffic. He got on Main Street, headed toward Middleton. And when we reached Brewery at Church, he was doing about 60 miles an hour, blew through that red light. So I terminated the pursuit at that point. It was just not worth the chase. Unfortunately, he continued on. Middleton was at the edge of their city waiting to see if he would have come in. Everybody figured he would have just turned off the many roads that are between here and there. But he didn't. He came into town and just kept speeding right through town. Ended up in a 3-car crash, minor injuries. He fled the scene, ended up getting arrested after a foot chase with a large amount of cocaine on it that he had tossed, and several other charges. So he's going through court right now, and we will have our own felony charges on him as well. Besides that, it's been a pretty busy month. So unless you guys have any questions, we can move on.
No, I think we can move into committee discussion, and it sounds like you use your knowledge and skills to not make a bad situation worse.
Yeah,
Glad they were
yeah.
caught.
Yeah.
So thank you, Chief. First committee discussion item is the chief's presentation on body worn cameras.
Okay, so both of the chiefs that we're going to present, they're running late. One of them is out at a search warrant, but he just sent me a message, said he's going to log in. The other one got some kind of case right at the end, but he also said he was going to log in. So he just asked for us to move on. So I think we'll just kind of move on. So the next one would be the IT presentation. And we do have JJ Antonetti with us. I'm going to ask that he unmute.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm
Hi,
here.
JJ. Yeah. Thanks for coming.
You bet.
So
So
I think what we're looking for, part of the questions that we've had is cost. And so, you know, I've done some research on cost, and I know we've had conversations, but I think it would be nice if you could present to the committee, you know, just the cost that is associated with having a body cam program.
Okay, well, basically the costs, I believe, were given to you by Baycom for the body worn cameras. I don't know if you've shared that document with the committee or not.
Yes, I did. It was approximately $5,000 for all body cams.
Correct.
I think
Correct.
we're more looking at storage and,
Storage, we're looking at, basically at this point with the body worn cameras comes, the also basically, the current system that you guys are running right now, an arbitrator system, which also includes all the squad videos and also what is called the back end server, that houses that. We're looking at, actually replacing that unit because it's probably at this point, well over 7 years old. And it has not really been updated or touched, uh, basically to upgrade it. And the server is basically at its point where it is not able to technically be able to go ahead and continue on with what you're doing the way it is. So replacing the server is basically what we're looking at, and investigating in what we need to go ahead and do to prepare for that. Currently, we've gotten pricing that is around about $13,500 to go ahead and replace everything. And that includes a bunch of storage that would include the capability of using body worn cameras.
okay. I know we spoke about the terabyte space, which was kind of one of the questions of how much space will that $13,500 provide? And I
Okay.
think you said it was 16 terabytes of space, which that means a lot to certain people, probably not a lot to other people. But could you kind of maybe tell
Sure,
us
sure.
a little bit about that?
Sure. Currently, the system for storage, there's several things that the arbitrator system basically allows you to go ahead and do. In the storage itself, it is 16 terabytes worth of storage, but it's about 14 terabytes worth of usable storage. And what that means is that there is actually redundancy built into the system, whereas if one of the drives were to fail, nothing really would happen. An alarm would go off and we would replace that drive and you would not lose any data. That does not include basically backing up the system, which we would be doing anyways. This is basically just running as is. So it would be about 14 terabytes worth of data storage. Now, if any of you guys have watched movies and have seen things or have actually recorded some things on your iPhones, etc., the body worn cameras alone basically are going to be running at what's called 1080p, which is a fairly high resolution. It's called full resolution, actually. And it's going to be 30 frames per second. And what that equates to is basically for 50 minutes worth of data or 50 minutes worth of recording, basic. And this is just an average. That would be about 1 gigabyte worth of storage. So if you're looking at 50 minutes or 50 minutes worth of recording, that's 1 gig worth of storage that you would use. Now, obviously, there are some policies and procedures that need to happen when going ahead and keeping all of this data. So there's going to be certain items that are going to go ahead and be kept for longer periods of time, like the speeding thing that you had just recently. That would be kept for a longer period of time because obviously that's an active case and it's something that basically isn't just a normal traffic stop. So that would be kept for a longer period of time. So this 14 terabytes would allow those things to be stored for a significant period of time. along with OWIs, et cetera, and other cases that you guys are working on. Along with that storage is other storage that's what's called working storage. So there would be about 4 to 8 terabytes worth of working storage. And what the working storage allows you to do is basically use the system to its best of potential, meaning it really accelerates the system. These are using different types of storage drives that would allow you to go ahead and quickly download those videos and be able to go ahead and put them into what is called long-term storage, that 14 terabytes worth of storage.
Okay. Just a quick question, and I know you've answered this with me, but it's something I want the committee to hear. So you've worked on these systems before. Obviously, you work for us as a tech, but you've worked on this type of system before. And for the size of our department and the workload that we have, is this 14 terabytes sufficient storage
Yes.
space for what we're trying to accomplish?
Yes, it is. It's very it's sufficient. I've worked with other police departments, not only with Arbitrator but with other video camera, squad camera, body worn camera situations. And this is actually very sufficient for what you're doing. In fact, it's about perfect in the respect that you guys are going to be going ahead and working on policy to go ahead and get these body worn cameras in. So this, yes, would suffice for a good period of time.
Okay. The other question that had been brought up by one of our board members that knows a lot about technical data and things of that sort, is this system, let's just say for the sake of argument, the system, we end up with a whole bunch of major cases and somehow we manage to fill up 14 terabytes of space. Is this system set up so we can then add additional space to it?
Yes, and that's a great question. Yes, what we've done in the past, in fact, the city of Monona, actually the Monona Police Department, has something very similar to that. What we've done is we've added on a storage device to their physical server, which basically allows us to almost have endless amounts of storage capabilities on their current server. What that allows us to do is to plug in a device, what is called a network area storage device, to go ahead and expand the amount of storage that you would from the 14 terabytes to anything. Because it is so fluid, you can actually add more storage units as we go along. Now, I'm not really thinking that we're going to have to do this right away and or for the next 5 years. I really don't think that you guys are going to be in that situation. But having said that, you know, we always look at the bigger picture here. And yes, we can go ahead and add additional storage to this system.
And you had said that that would come at about a cost of about $6,000?
That is correct.
I think we have a question from Lori.
Actually, Tony, you just asked it. I was
Okay.
wondering what the cost was for.
Yeah, yeah. We have a question from Candace.
So the 13,500 includes the body cameras and the storage, or on top of the 5,000 for the body camera?
So dealing with the issue of money and this to bring you up to speed. So 13,500 would be just our storage space.
Got it.
$5,000 would be our cameras
And then 6,000
if we ever needed it. The 13,500, 10,000 of that money has already been put aside in a capital improvement. So we already have that money. $3,500 is already in my budget for this year. So my plan is to pay for this 13,500 no matter what. We have to update the server. It is way outdated. So really what we're looking for is this $5,000 to equip our officers with 3 body cams at this point. If for some reason we fill up 14 terabytes of space, then we probably will have to figure out how to add more space. But our tech department doesn't think that that's ever going to happen. Our policies will kind of dictate how things get removed, what gets saved, and it would just take years before we actually fill that all the way up.
So I think I heard the answer, but I just want to clarify. So we sitting here tonight anticipate the system, it's 5 years based on everything.
Yeah.
I mean, things could change and I get that, but we're thinking this is probably something that will be discussed 5 years from now as to whether or not we need to expand the capability of the system.
JJ, did you hear that question?
Yep.
So we're
And-
saying, go ahead.
Yeah, and that is exactly correct. You're gonna look at, well, how do we go ahead and meet the needs of what we have right now? And what is going to be needed in the future. Yes, in 5 years, that could very well be a possibility, but to be honest, I think with policies in place, I don't think that that's actually going to happen. And what I mean by policies is that things will expire after a specific period of time, and they will actually be erased from the system. The normal everyday traffic stops only need to be kept for a specific period of time. And so those things would actually, it's almost like if any of you have DVRs that record cameras, it basically overwrites the oldest type of information. Well, that's basically essentially what this system is capable of doing. Just keeping only specific things that you actually do need to use.
And we will at 5 years from now have to discuss body cams because it's just like anything. It's a computer. They will
Updates throughout.
they'll be updated and
Service.
they'll probably be obsolete. So part of the $5,000 also includes a 5-year warranty on those systems. So we're kind of already looking at 5 years down the line. We'll have to look at that system again, and then at that time we can look to see if we need more cost. So what I wanted the committee to see is that it isn't really that expensive. This whole program is not that expensive. And you're hearing it right from the tech people that work with our department. So thank you, JJ, for your time.
I got one quick one.
We have another question.
Sure, no problem.
Just basically verifying that the police squad cameras and the body worn cameras will be integrated in the same server moving forward. I think that would be advantageous.
Yeah,
there's another reason to do the update now.
Yeah, they're both arbitrator cameras and systems, so they work together.
Perfect.
Correct.
Thank you,
Yeah,
JJ.
you bet.
Okay, I do have, we can go back. Both chiefs have signed on. We have the chief from Mount Horeb and we have the chief from Shorewood Hills online. So do you want to?
Yeah, let's go back to the committee discussion, the chief's presentations on DWC.
Whoever wants to go first, you can unmute yourselves. We're looking for the pros and the cons of the body cam programs that you have in place. And we thank you very much for being here.
Well, I'll take that opportunity to go first thing. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. My name's Aaron Chapin. I'm currently the police chief at Shorewood Hills. And we implemented a body worn camera program probably about 1.5 years ago, I think was when we went live with it. We initially went with VView, which has been purchased by Axon, and we had a little bit of a difficult transition with them. Some equipment issues, but then we ended up transitioning because our in-car solution was also needing to be upgraded. So we went with WatchGuard. Not that I'm looking to sell any particular brand, and I hear you're already looking at Arbitrator. So there's a lot of good programs out there. I worked with my public health and safety committee and the village board on a handful of different issues that I'm sure Cross Plains is dealing with right now. Some of those issues were privacy related issues, people wondering about when the cameras were going to be on, when they were going to be required to be off. There's a lot of misinformation out there right now regarding body worn cameras and video cameras, period. There's people, not sure if anybody watched the speakers task force that just happened regarding law enforcement. They had discussions about body worn cameras, and people were pushing to have cops, once they start their shift, wear a body cam and have it on the entire time. You know, so for a full 8-hour shift, 10-hour shift. And I overheard you were talking about storage. It's unsustainable to be able to do things like that. I had to have those conversations with my committee and my board to say what's realistic is the officers need to turn it on when they need to turn it on, when they're in contact with a citizen, and then shut it off when that contact is done. We did put in our policy a handful of exemptions, and I had discussions with my committee about the fact that there are many sensitive crimes that we end up investigating. So particularly sexual assault. If we have a victim of a sexual assault and we go in and start talking about stuff being on body cam, if you think about your most recent consensual sexual contact, you don't want to talk to other people about that. So why would we want to have somebody who just went through something that is the most traumatic experience they've probably ever had in their entire life and hopefully ever will have, not have the choice as to whether they want to tell that story and have it immortalized on camera? So being able to put the power back in the victim's hands to be able to say, we will shut this off if you want this shut off. If you want it on, we'll leave it on. We're going to have to talk about gory details of what happened. So we said that across the board for any victim. If there's a victim that requests that we not record their statement, then the officers are supposed to say at the request of the victim, I'm turning off my body worn camera, and then they need to document it in the report, and they need to send me an email or their sergeant to say this is why that particular interview was not recorded. We would also, in circumstances depending on the officer's discretion with witnesses, we also don't want that to be a barrier for a witness being able to provide information to us. So we put an exemption in that would allow at officer discretion if the officer finds a compelling reason to not record a witness statement. But again, they need the witness to say that on camera and document it in their report. We don't offer that to suspects. If we're going to interview a suspect, the suspect statement is recorded. If they choose not to talk to us, that's their option. They have a Fifth Amendment right towards not speaking to us. And if they don't want to talk to us because we have a body worn camera on, then that's their constitutional right to be able to do that. We did work through some challenges regarding retention, which I heard you were talking about that. I do anticipate that the state is there is some legislation that is being proposed out of the speakers task force and also in other legislative capabilities or capacities regarding retention. So as long as your policy is following, obviously state law regarding records retention, the systems that are out there will handle that. They'll automatically delete when you set them to at a certain amount of time, whatever your records retention policy is. And then most of them will allow you to be able to extend that if necessary. I can tell you from firsthand experience, my officers absolutely love the body worn cameras. And if they're not working, if we have one that goes down for some reason or a battery is drained on something, somebody didn't plug it back in, because it is technology and people are using it. So there is the potential for error. The officers get frustrated if the technology didn't work exactly how they wanted it to. So they are huge advocates, huge proponents of being able to have it. So one of the other things that's important to consider is video redaction. I'm not sure what arbitrator has for redaction purposes, but that's something that chief will have to work through. So if you get video requests, obviously under open records, there's things that need to be redacted, juvenile information, that kind of stuff. So we've had a really good experience so far. I'm a huge advocate for body worn cameras. I don't think the cost is unsustainable for the majority of agencies out there. And the village has had really good experiences so far. So I don't know if Doug wants to share his experience or if you guys want to ask questions.
Anybody have questions of?
Just a quick question for you, Chief, because I'm familiar with your jurisdictions. When you were implementing this, What was the reaction of the public?
So we had some mixed reactions, but we had some different opportunities for people to provide input. So the Public Health and Safety Committee meeting, Village Board meeting. So we had civilians that were providing input into the policy. And one of the advantages that I have is that we're surrounded by both Middleton and UW who have body cams already. So the majority of my constituency already is used to it. And the concerns that people had about, somebody being able to go ahead and request body cam footage so they can see what the inside of their neighbors' houses are. There's all kinds of like weird things that people will bring up as their concerns. A lot of that, number one, is going to be addressed in that legislation that's forthcoming. But there's also there needs to be a compelling interest for somebody, we're not just going to release records without applying the balancing test. So the balance versus privacy versus a compelling public interest. And I think I can articulate that somebody wanting to see the inside of their neighbor's house, that we're probably going to redact that unless there's a real public safety interest, and then let them fight it in court if they really want to have that unredacted. So we were able to have those concerns kind of answered and addressed beforehand. I think the biggest thing that we still have dealt with a little bit is the issue of juveniles. But since we've had the videos, the body worn cameras, I don't think we've had maybe one request for video since we've had it in place. So the fears that were out there, I don't think have come to fruition at this point. So.
Thank you.
And just to deal with redactions come up several times here. The redaction is already part of the 1350, 13,500. It's already going to be in there. So redaction basically, all it does is blur out those people that are not part of the case. And so if let's say we get in a foot chase and we're chasing somebody down the street and it's capturing everybody as we're running, that will all be blurred out. So that's what the redaction is for. That and many other things, but it will be part of the cost already within that 13.5.
So anyone can request to see a video? Right.
Yeah, it's an open record,
It's open record,
just like anybody could get a copy of our reports or emails or whatever. They're all part of our open record request. We always do a balance test on the request to determine why, and it's very minimal what we can deny, but we can redact a lot of things, and we do with reports. We'll redact a lot of information that is not pertinent to the information that's being sought. Thanks a lot, Aaron, for your time. Doug, are you with us?
I am.
Hey, Doug.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, very good.
So my name is Doug. I'm the Chief of Police at Mount Horeb Police Department. Thank you for your patience tonight. I ran late on a case and got a little late getting here, but so I've used body worn cameras since 2008. I started at Edgerton Police Department down in Rock County, and we started with VView as well. And then when I transitioned up to Mount Horeb, we had no cameras here at all. And in fact, they have little history here. So on the negative side of things, our staff was a little apprehensive. So I was trying to do research, figure things out. And it was actually citizens that reached out and contacted me saying that they wanted body worn cameras. They wanted that in our community. So I discussed it with our public safety committee, our village board, village administration, and determined that this year we were going to budget for it. So I have ordered cameras. They are not implemented yet, but we have a combination squad cam and body cam system. So all our squads will have squad cams, and then we'll also have a body cam on each officer as well. My pros for body cams are accountability and transparency. If people want to see what's going on, they can request that. Back in Edgerton, I think we had from what I remember, there were 0 requests from the public for body cameras. We might have one request from a news agency and the rest were all for evidence purposes in court where they were subpoenaed through the evidence request process. Protection of both the officers as well as the village, as well as citizens just in general. I've had several complaints in the past that were exonerated through body worn camera video in my career where somebody came in and said, oh, he did this or that. And the moment we looked at video, it showed that that's not really what happened. So it protects staff, it protects the village. It also protects the community as well, showing the truth about what happened. And then for evidentiary purposes, as well as covering juveniles. So there's certain state statutes that require juvenile interviews to be recorded using video and audio where possible. So this would help in the field to record an interview with a juvenile there rather than transporting them all the way back to the police department. So it can be more efficient and better coverage for state statutes. Some of the negative aspects for body worn cameras that I've seen, one is storage. And the way that we've worked around that is it is very expensive. However, talking about the retention days and that, if it's evidence, we pull it and we put it on a separate hard drive, and then that goes in the evidence room. And then after that retention period, which ours is going to be 180 days based on the policy that I was looking at and referred to. But after that 180 days, the video is erased, but if it's evidence, we've already saved it, and then we keep that for different retention periods there. But storage is expensive, as you've seen, and it only gets more and more expensive as technology changes. The other negative is technology fails. As Aaron had mentioned, everybody expects the cameras to work perfectly, but batteries die. I've had mine knocked off during fights and things where people struggled with me. So, I mean, it's not an end-all be-all perfect solution. And the same thing comes down to point of view. It is one angle, one direction, and it does not cover everything. I've seen videos that look horrible, but being on scene, you see the true scope of it because it's 360 degrees. So taking that into consideration, that things may not look as perfect as you expect, it's not going to solve all issues or concerns on that end. And that's all I have on body cams. I'm happy to take any questions or answer any questions that you may have.
I'm just curious, your experience in Edgerton, like how often in a year would a camera be requested for evidence? Like 5, 10, just out of curiosity.
When we first started, it was very rare. We were one of the first agencies in the area to get body cams. When I left in 2019, any case that had body cam footage, it was getting requested if there was a trial. Obviously, if it was settled outside of court, there was no need for it. But once it was, if it was scheduled for trial, they'd request it and we'd send it down there. I know some agencies, some court systems have an electronic submission. In Rock County, it was all done where we'd have to burn it on a disk and send it down there. I know Dane County now, they have the files, we can upload them digitally, so we're not using thumb drives or other things like that. So it's a little easier process here.
And just to answer that question, in Dane County, one of the first questions that's asked is there video, body cam or squad, anything going to the DA's office. That's one of the first things they ask based on discovery laws. Well, I think that's all the questions we have. Doug, thank you very much for showing up and helping us out.
Yeah, I'm happy to help. If you have any other questions, feel free to email me, and my policy is almost done. So if you need help with policy, let me know. I can share that as well.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Chief.
you.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye. So that concludes. The reason I only invited 2 is that most every agency in Dane County has body cams. So it would have just been redundant. We would have just been hearing the same thing. The only agency, just to bring Candace up to speed, is the Sheriff's Department. They don't have body cams. We don't have body cams, but Madison PD doesn't have body cams. However, they have started a pilot program on the north side, so it won't be long. I know their chief is very much in favor of it. So we're in the very minority of not having body cams. But Mount Horeb, just they're new, they're starting out. Blue Mounds, everybody's going to body cams, so they're looking at the program. And so I thought Doug, I've known Doug for a while, and I knew that when he took over, there wasn't body cams, and he was going through the same kind of issues we're seeing. So.
And it's Sherwood Hills, that's over there by like the hospital UW. like,
Yep.
over there.
Yep. So he's surrounded by body cams. So he, obviously a year ago when he became chief, he looked at, adding body cams to himself. And they have the same mentality, accountability, transparency, avenues to train officers if we're, as we're seeing things as a supervisor, things aren't quite right. This is a good way to train staff, look at video, what we're doing. But it also is protection of our officers, because a lot of times there's, people, and maybe some of it is mean-spirited complaints that are false, but then there's also that avenue of perception, where maybe somebody perceived this to be what it was, but this way it takes that away. It's gone. It's what it is what it is. And so that's kind of where our brains have been since we started this, I think 7 months, November. Yeah, since we started this process in November.
Kind of our second step. The first was the tasers, and less the lethal shotgun.
So.
Now it's time to get on board with the body worn.
Okay, so the next is the CPPD staff.
Yep.
So I have invited some of my staff. I invited all the staff, but the staff that is here is one of my youngest officer, my newest officer, and then I have my most seasoned officer that's on right now. One of my other officers was going to be on, but he's on duty. My guess is he's on a call. He actually wrote a paper, research paper on body cams for one of his courses. So he was going to share that. And maybe he's on as well. I'm not sure.
Chief, he's on with me.
Okay, so he's with you. Good.
Yep, we're at the office.
Okay, so they're both there. So I'm gonna let them kind of take it away. If Scott and Ben, you want to introduce yourselves and start?
Sure, I can start first. My name is Scott Kretz. I've been here since 1989, so my Wanakee math is 32 years. Let me first say that I'm 100% for body cameras, unequivocally, without a doubt. I did some research for this presentation, so I have a few pages of just generalizations. Just because I say something, that doesn't mean there's a problem with the police department or a police officer here. It's just something that all of us need to realize and take in. I should first ask, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So according to the Department of Justice, in January of 21, only a third of the 553 Wisconsin police agencies do not have body cameras. My experience for about the last 25 years or so with video cameras is that people tend to behave better when they know that they're being watched or videotaped, and that can and will be used against them, possibly in court or at a hearing if they file a complaint against an officer. Right now, as we speak, we tell people that we are interacting with that the dash camera is recording and that everything they say and do, especially during a search or a pat down of the subject, is being recorded. A huge benefit for body cameras is that it allows officers to self-evaluate and find opportunities to improve how to handle a situation. We all know that body-worn cameras are not a remedy for all ills or difficulties. So it's not just a slam dunk in terms of being able to fix a number of problems that they hope to fix. And I'm going to preface that, I'm going to not preface it, but I'm going to reiterate that just because I say that statement, there isn't a problem here. Body-worn cameras are not a remedy for all ills or difficulties to solve all of our challenges, but it definitely brings accountability while using it, like videos for training purposes to prevent future incidents. One huge thing for body cameras is citizen complaints. And I'm sure the chief can attest to this, not necessarily from Cross Plains, but maybe from his previous employer in Darlington, that the investigation into citizen complaints can lead to substantial decrease in time and resources devoted to investigating those complaints. I can't tell you how many times a citizen is contacted by the police, have later filed a complaint or voiced a concern over that contact, only later to be informed that the chief viewed the video, specifically the squad car camera I'm talking about, and their complaint is completely unfounded. Cameras also present opportunities for police departments to highlight the everyday good officers do, as well as give the public a better idea of what day-to-day life of a police officer is really like. The chiefs kind of spoke about this, that the technology doesn't pick up everything that the officer sees. Police body camera is only useful when it's pointed in the direction of a suspect or the action that they're facing. So that means complex situations might not receive clear and convincing video evidence of an outcome, even if there are multiple officers involved. There's no guarantee that the quality of video is going to be good enough. I think Chief Doug from Mount Horeb spoke about this, that the video may not pick up a problematic incident either. Take dash cams, for example. I know for a fact that we can see the suspect swaying or the slight swerving of a car. When you go and review the camera footage later, the camera does not pick that up that the human eye can. Body cameras can shake dramatically, as we all have seen in the national news for the last months or maybe even a year. So when the cameras shake and move, they only show the officer's point of view. So the viewer gets the impression that the officer is under greater threat. I had a whole paragraph in here about how expensive body cameras are. I'm just going to completely not say anything about that because it's already been discussed. One of the most critical features of the modern police body camera is the ability of the equipment to begin pre-recording when a potential incident might occur. We call that pre-event recording. We currently have that on our squad car systems. It will then store approximately 30 seconds of the footage before the camera was recorded. If an officer engaged the camera accidentally or forgets to have it turned on before facing a suspect, then the department will have spent all that money and resources without having anything to show for it. The police officer must also remember to turn the camera on if needed. I think JJ talked about it and Chief Doug and maybe Chief Aaron. Everything electronic has costly upgrades. The village must always budget for potential need for software upgrades for the body camera, the charging equipment, the storage, the transferring of digital evidence, the computer system, all of the time and effort you pay for an hourly employee. There's the privacy concern that the chiefs have spoke about. Again, it's their most humiliating experience or embarrassing experience. Some people might not be okay that their image or their choices that they chose to have done that evening will appear in that footage. Let's see, we could talk about data storage, but I think JJ already covered that. The technology can change the way that a police officer approaches their job. This is just a generalization. It's not applicable to Cross Plains or any specific officer or any specific individual here. But when you've been doing a job for 10, 20, 30 years, routines you develop over that time make you extremely efficient. Telling someone to change habits might be healthy for law enforcement and the village and the community, but it also requires today's police officers to have time to adapt to that situation. That's why ongoing training must occur to maximize the benefits of this technology, which could potentially add another expense to the department. I don't know if there's any truth to this or not, but I've been doing a lot of research about witnesses. People don't like to appear on camera unless there's a specific reason for them to be so. When officers investigate a sensitive scene, a disturbing case, or we have to come into one of your homes for a private issue, the knowledge that an interview could be taped, even though they are standing in your own home, could stop some people from cooperating. And I understand that, you know, policies, the chief is written or writing could deal with that. I'm thinking that it may prevent some officers from even having access to a home. Chief Doug spoke about this, that there's no guarantee whether the technology will work. He spoke about batteries having problems and some other issue I don't recall. So anything electronic will fail and has failed. I can attest to that. Video cameras, tape recorders have failed while in the middle of recording something. I'm sure Chief Tony, you can talk about this for eons too, because you got 20 years in it. Microphones that we carry for the dash cams sometimes fail. The technology that we carry sometimes will show a full battery when in reality the battery is dead. That's just technology. It's an inherent risk that technology will fail. So technology is only as good as people who create it. Items like body cameras are also considered to be a consumable item. It's going to wear out. That means an officer can do everything right and still have their camera malfunction. Chief Doug talked about a battery issue. I'm not going to talk about that again, but that's something to consider. Something simple like an unknown lens obstruction could cause an issue with the collected footage. Just remember, it's technology. We all can relate to our technology that has failed. The other thing about body cameras is releasing video, and of course, Chief Tony will take that under advisement and with policies and procedures and et cetera. But I would strongly recommend having a warning issued in writing when video is released, that perceptual biases come with that release, which means the dramatic shaking of the footage might be blocked. There might be footage of the action per se if the body camera isn't even pointed in the direction of the action. That's my conclusion. And just to sum up, to reiterate that I am 100% for body cameras. I don't see any officer in our department being against them. It would be a work in progress. And that's it.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Any questions, comments, concerns?
I don't think so. You kind of covered everything. I know Ben is on. Ben, you want to just give us some information about your research paper?
Ben is seated next to me. I'll switch positions so he can hop in here.
The reason I invited staff was in order to, that this isn't a chief program that I'm trying to get through. I see the value of it. I've been using it for well over a decade. But I wanted to make sure in all of the things that I've done, and they're all on right now and they can attest to it. Any change that I've made since coming on board has involved them. And so there's no way that we can proceed as a department if I don't have buy-in from the staff. It doesn't work. It never would work. So that's why they're involved. Okay, Ben, we're ready.
All right, here I am. Hello, everybody. This is Officer Ben Miller. I've been here with the Cross Plains Police Department for about 5.5 years. Chief Tony wanted me to speak on a little research that I did regarding this topic. The research was done for a research paper for a training I was involved in back in 2019. So I took a little survey and came up with just some general results and general perception results of body cameras. And I'm gonna preface that prior to coming on board here at the Cross Plains Police Department, when I worked in Kellogg, Idaho, our agency did have body cameras. So I came from an agency that did have this program employed, and I will say first, from firsthand experience, it's a program that is very beneficial to the village and to the officers. this type of technology will help the community as well as officers moving forward. But to touch on the research here, I sent out a couple of questions, a questionnaire to our members of our department, as well as opened it up through a community forum. And the reaction that I got from here at the department, all staff members across the board, from chief to a lieutenant detective, to our administrative assistant, and to officers, everybody, there was 100% support of body cameras. And the biggest reason and rationale for this is for our own, almost like an insurance policy for ourselves as professionals. Every day, day to day, we're involved in interactions with the public, and it seems more and more prevalent now. Anytime you turn on the news, there's a story of alleged misconduct or alleged police involvement that could be perceived in an unfavorable manner. And so the beauty of the body cameras from a staff perspective is that the video provides another opportunity, another avenue for that incident to be reviewed in a very non-biased situation. The video is completely raw. It's from start to finish, as opposed to literal microsecond clips and potentially edited clips of the incident at hand. Again, I guess I'm getting off track a little bit, but going back to the research as well, I asked internally if there was any issue, any reason and rationale for not implementing a body cam program, and the only potential negative that came up has been addressed time and time again, and that has to do with cost and then potential privacy issues, which these two matters are going to be taken care of at the level above officer. But as far as officer negative perceptions from the officer point of view, there are none. And then just a couple other points of fact here. Reaching out to the community, asking if there was community support on a 5-tiered response, being from strongly disagree to neutral to agree to strongly agree. 87% of the respondents that I had for this paper said that they either strongly agree or agree with the police department having body cameras. And that, again, this was early 2019, before a lot of the police scrutiny issues in the media were taking place. And there was a position or a portion to state why you agree and support officers having body cameras. And the preponderance of responses had to do with the quality of our police department and the fact that our community members do not want allegations that can't be proven for our officers. The community members look at our officers and think very highly of our staff, and they want that video footage to back up the professionalism that the professional services that we deliver. So just to wrap up in short here, from the staff perspective, everybody's on board and is excited to bring cameras in to help us with the job and tasks at hand. And from the community perspective, and the responses that I received from our community members, it's near certainty that there's the desire of body cameras, and the reason for the body cameras is for what I like to call all the right reasons. There isn't the allegations of police misconduct or being treated poorly. Again, the community support is, we trust our officers are doing a great job. we want the cameras to back up the job that they're doing, and so our officers don't have to feel that somebody can come out and get them. So that wraps up my portion as far as data and research. And again, I want to reiterate, coming from a department that did have body cameras, it's just another tool. It was spoke of, there can be technology issues. I was involved in a fight where my camera got knocked off of me. I couldn't think anything less of it. That was the last thing on my mind was worrying about the camera. I had to take care of the situation. So I do want to share that moving forward, there has to be the understanding that, again, this is technology. Technology can fail. We can run into an issue all of a sudden to where a file doesn't record for some reason. The technology is great and very helpful, but we have to be open that if something happens, and we have to understand that there can be technology failure. So, Chief, thank you very much for it. I guess, are there any questions for me?
I don't think so. Thank you.
No, I don't think so. Thanks, Ben. I know I have Officer Nikki Kimball is online too. I don't know if there's anything you would like to add. Nikki, we're all ears.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I mean, I guess, yeah, I think everybody covered most of the things that I had to. Like everybody else said, I think that they can help us and, work for us more so than against us. Like Chief Tony said, I am the newest officer. I don't have any law enforcement experience anywhere else. This is my first department. I have been here for, it'll be 3 years in July. And I mean, when I went through school, I graduated school in 2015. And when I went through school, we were taught to always act as if you're being recorded anyway, because you are. I mean, you're kind of in a fishbowl in the public. So so having cameras really, I mean, I always try and act as if, I'm being recorded regardless. But I guess one of my concerns or things that makes me nervous, I just worry that I think that sometimes the public in general, not necessarily in our community, but just in general, can kind of, I think that we forget that we as officers all are human, and we do make mistakes. So far they haven't been detrimental or anything like that, but it does happen. We're human beings. So I think sometimes we tend to make a mountain out of a molehill as far as smaller mistakes. And even something as, forgetting to turn it on. If you're in a hot situation and, like Ben said, if it's on the ground, that's kind of your last worry. You're just trying to deal with the situation at hand. So I guess that would be something, I guess, that would be, dealt with in training and in policy and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, in general, I am, pro body cams, just like everybody else. And I think that is the only other things I had.
Thank you very much, Nikki.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I think you've heard from everybody that was going to present today.
No, greatly appreciate your time, Nikki, Ben, and Scott. Thank you. Any other comments or questions while Cap's on? Very good, go ahead, Lori.
Mine is more, like for budget wise, I feel like the police department is gonna be taking on a lot more financial burden because of the body cameras, tasers, and that kind of thing. And I don't know, how can you get more money to do other things
Sure.
for your department, not just, I feel like the village should be looking at this also, not just Chief Tony, that, all of this should be out of your budget,
Mhm.
and how you can kind of get more money in your budget to
Sure.
help.
So you know, the 3 programs that we started, 2 that the less than lethal and the taser, those things are already they've already been approved and budgeted. And so those things are in the process of being bought and trained and those kind of things. So we're working through that. As far as training on those typical topics, we already have a training budget. And so we will just have to, sway, how much we train on this and how much we train on that. So it'll just be part of our training. Part of the great thing about that, so our biggest cost there would be training for those less than lethal and taser. But I've partnered with Troy Helmbrandt up in Middleton, and it's not going to cost us anything. We will be training with them. And so as long as we need, they will partner with us to train us. So at some point, I do want to have an officer on staff that does the training so we don't overstay our welcome, if you will. But Troy and I are working, I mean, we're part of the same school district, and so we work together, and if we're going to be helping each other, it would be, us. I've also partnered with Doug in Mount Horeb for a lot of our training. So we're kind of in a consortium and we're working together. So that won't be a problem. I think that the only money that we will have to always be thinking of will be, adding new technology. So even the tasers, within 5-6 years time, we're going to need new tasers. So we'll, it'll just be a cost that we will have to incur over time, just like computers, just like anything else. As things move on, we will have to incur. The good thing about it is that usually not everything goes out at once, so we can kind of, budget and we're very conscientious of our budget, and I'm working through that. But yeah, there may come a time where we're kind of like, okay, we're about as tight as it can be, and we might need more budget. But I think if kind of like what Ben described, if the community is in support of body cameras, I don't think that they won't be an issue, swaying the money that way. And it's not such a big cost that we're, having to take out loans or something like that. I think we just kind of incorporate it kind of like our squad cars and those kind of things. It'll just be programs over the course of time that we will be able to absorb and train in and those kind of things. So.
And I think the tack we take is make it very clear to the village board that what we're talking about here is not an addition. It's not a luxury. It's not moving forward. We've stepped back 10 years and we're trying to get caught up. This shouldn't be, I don't want this to be perceived that all kinds of money is being funneled into the police department because, this stuff's all cool. This is the stuff we need. This is like, we stumbled across this. I'm the first, and I'll tell this to anybody. When this came up in November, when we had this, I looked at it on the agenda, I assumed we had the lesson. I made some wrong assumptions. I've been on this committee for over 5 years.
But I don't even think it's just this committee made those assumptions. The community made those assumptions.
Right.
When I first came here, I had opportunities to talk to a couple groups before COVID, and now it's been a lot of one-on-ones. And in my conversations with the community, first of all, less than lethal and taser are so dated. They had no idea we didn't have that. Matter of fact, it was brought up at the village board level that we don't have those things. I mean, it was interesting to see that. So I think that's why that kind of passed relatively quick and easy. I think it was dated. This program is dated too. Body cams have been around for almost 15 years, and everybody's recording. So I think it would only take one lawsuit for us to recoup any kind of money that we are spending on that, especially if it's a he said, she said. A lot of times, I think back 25 years when I started, I could just simply raise my right hand and say, this is what happened. And the judge just said, okay, that's what happened. And we moved on. That doesn't happen anymore. I mean, sure, they take your credibility and your reputation, but people want to fact check. They want to double check. And this is just, now we're capturing everything. Scott mentioned that. So like, for instance, the squad car, if I hit the lights, the camera comes on, it will record actually 30 seconds before. So like in that chase that I spoke about earlier, it actually showed me peacefully driving up, looking for this vehicle and then spotting the vehicle. So it captures the before the whole thing started. And which is really good, because even if you have your body cam, so let's say someone's asked us to shut it off, you're in their home, there's nothing going on, and all of a sudden something kicks off, somebody comes in through the door, there's an incident, you can hit the record and you're going to capture that 30 seconds, even up to a minute or two. I mean, you can set those to record a lot more time. But 30 seconds is usually pretty good from we're having a conversation to, oh, something just happened and now we've got issues going on. And so I think that, that will capture all of that. So training will be important. I think all the officers hit on that. We need to make sure that they're trained and that they have time to assimilate to what we're the programming. Although we've got tasers and although we've got less than lethal, I haven't rushed to incorporate all of that because there's training that needs to be done. The equipment still is, some of it's in back order. So there's no rush. We've got the programs that are coming. It's not something that we want officers to just have the equipment and say, okay, go use it. No, they have to be really good at what they do with it. As we just saw, there was an incident not too far away where somebody grabbed the taser or grabbed a gun instead of the taser. So that, I mean, these are realities of stressful situations. We're being asked to handle very stressful situations in very split second time. And so knowing your training is very, really important. Same thing with body cams. Officers are going to forget because they didn't have those on before. Officers may over record because now they're constantly thinking that. So all of those things will work themselves out. It's no different than when we had, squad cameras. The whole thing still happens to this day. Somebody forgets to turn it on, and then we just, correct that and say, hey, you got to make sure you're turning this on for this reason. And the trainable moments. In the time that I've been here, which I've been here now going on 16 months, we've had 0 record requests for anything out of our squad cars. And as you guys know, every month I report on the many cases we have. Nobody's running out to ask us for video of what happened. Usually if we do get a request, it's from the DA's office saying, what do you have for evidence for this case, which we're required to provide anyway, just because of discovery. So anyway, I want to thank everybody who came to the meeting. They did a very good job in helping us try to understand a little more.
I think the chief's perspective was very good, as well as your officers. I think it's a big tool in their kit. I don't think it's perfect. I think you can run into a technology issue, but I think the prevention piece, whether it's frivolous complaints, efficiency, speeding up an investigation, I think theirs is way more pro than con. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So I'm appreciative of all the work chiefs put into it and perspective from our staff. And, as a board member, I'm always going to vote with the experts and the staff. So I think it's a good tool, and I think this continues to advance our work. And for Candace being new, we're kind of in the middle of the VWC process, and we're hoping to get through that by the end of the summer. We got a couple other big chunks to take care of. Any other comments on body-worn cameras? The next agenda item is future items of discussion.
So we don't have any, we do have an item that might come to this committee soon. There's an issue going on at Glacier Creek with regard with parking on Military Road. It's getting pretty congested. There's parking on both sides and people are having trouble getting in and out with all the parents dropping off kids and picking up kids, especially in the evening. It gets really congested. So we have an officer there that's doing traffic control and just trying to get people out. We're doing the same thing at Park because everybody's just trying to scramble and kids dart into traffic. And so we're trying to, have someone there. The unfortunate part is that it's usually only one of us on. So if we get sent to, like today, I got sent to a car crash, head-on collision on Main Street, that takes precedence. So, the school is aware of that deficiency and they do help. But that may come to this committee because we need to probably look at a no parking. So at least it widens the road a little bit. There is some issues with regards to the annexation, and there was some issues way back when the Viridian was put in. And so there's some things that need to be cleaned up. So it's going through the attorney right now, and there's some issues that way, but it may come to the committee sooner than later. Definitely before maybe next year's school. We'll have to deal with it by then. Other than that, there's nothing else. I just wonder if you guys remember, I did include the timeline that I had kind of put together with you guys as far as what we were going to do. My goal is to finalize the body worn camera at the next meeting. I'm working with, just so to bring Candace up to speed, I have partnered with Lexipol. So Lexipol is a company, they work internationally, but they basically update all policies and keep us up to date with best practice, state law, federal law. It's all vetted through attorneys. So it's a very powerful organization and association. So we're redoing our whole policy manual. A lot of agencies have gone with this. Right now, Fitchburg PD is going through the same 9-month process. Actually, Scott Kretz is on my team. We're going through every policy word by word, making sure that it's up to date, up to speed, best practice, kept policy up to date with regard to state laws and all of that. So we're going through that. So that's how this will be vetted. We had to do this, our use of force policy had to be updated immediately. After the incident in Minneapolis, it became kind of a hot topic that all agencies look at chokeholds and all of those things. We already had an updated policy. I wasn't concerned about it, but we still went through the process of getting that vetted through the Department of Justice, Lexipol, multiple agencies saw it. So we actually have best practice policy in place already. And if we hadn't done that, then we would have been exempt from any grant funding through the feds. So we had to do it. It was basically, it was signed into law by President Trump, and that it had happened. So we took care of that. I took care of that almost immediately. So we're partnered with them. The cost of it is expensive to partner with Lexipol. It's about $4,000. However, the League of Municipalities, our insurance carrier, pays for 2,400 of it if you partner with them, because they realize that they will keep us out of trouble because they vetted everything through attorneys and they have the best practice. So as long as you follow your policies, you should technically stay out of insurance problems. So we have to come up with the balance, which I've worked it right into our budget and we're fine. So that's kind of where we're going with policy. There are a lot of opinions with regards to policy. So we are going to use some of those opinions and make sure that we're, looking at all the angles with the expectation of privacy, when to turn it on, all the things that Chief Aaron spoke about. We already are looking at. I mean, we're not going to be recording victims. We're not going to be recording witnesses. That would be terrible to do. So we'll have all that policy up to date. My goal is that by the next meeting, I'll be able to bring you a clean policy that you guys can take a look at. I'm going to send it to you a week or so in advance so you have time to look at it, send me some emails, corrections, suggestions, those kind of things. Even though it's vetted through Lexipol, it's human, right? So there might be a mistake in there. We have found a couple mistakes as we're reading through it, just wording or misspelling or whatever. So we'll do that. And then my hopes were, based on our timeline, would be to have a public forum. As you can see, we invite the public to all these meetings. We invite the village board. We're not getting a lot of participation. And I think that is because people just expect that we have body cams, or that it's a no-brainer. But I think it was asked of us to make sure that the public was involved. And so we're thinking a couple public forums. And so my thoughts were maybe in June to have our first one. Should we, and I don't know what that looks like or what your guys' thoughts are that way.
I think June would be good.
Yeah, I think there's two things. One, I would like to find ways not only with the Public Safety Committee, but also to engage the public a little more in some of the board's work and some of the other departments, whether it's water, sewer, planning, people have that. I definitely think there could be a way to tie a little bit of this info, the less than lethal and the body worn cameras into National Night Out. If we're able to do that, I think that might, not that they have to read the policy, but just give them some
Just add
basic
it to August.
information. It's usually in early August.
Yep, early August. Yeah, we can definitely do that. I mean, we'll be within good time in August to, have it part of that and those discussions. Because my hopes is that in August or the latest September, we would have a recommendation for the board, whether we're going with them or not. So we can move through the budget, because I'm going to look at grant funding for the cameras. If we are able to find grant funding, then it really is at no cost, because the 13,500 will already be covered by this year's budget and by last year's capital improvement. So finding the money to buy the cameras through grant funding would be ideal, because then it would just be, hey, there's no cost. There may be a cost in the future, but there's no cost now. And according to our tech, we wouldn't have a cost even if we did. It would be 5 years from now.
Right, you can
Well,
plan for it.
Yeah, you could plan for it. You can make it part of our capital improvement, like squads and those kind of things, computers. So, I mean, I'm going to look at grant funding. There is some grant funding, but nothing specific that I have found for body cams. So I don't know if, maybe a company would be willing to help us out and that kind of thing, but we'll see. But I think in June, I guess, what do you guys propose for the public forum?
I guess I was maybe thinking of having the meeting at a little bigger place. I don't know if
Okay.
it's the Legion or the school, but we invite people.
Okay.
And we try to get them there. I think even an officer or two would be helpful, just to reiterate a little bit of their support. I think we can try to engage them. I'm not saying we're gonna get a room full of people, but I would like to attempt that. What I've tried to do, as a former village board member and being on public safety, is when people bring stuff up, I'm like, what's your solution? How can we engage you in this? So, we might be able to find a little bit more out, but my first idea would just be to have the next meeting in a place that's a little bigger and try to get some people there.
Do you guys want to keep, so I think American Legion would be great because it's big enough. Do you have a contact at American?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you want to confirm that venue and then let me know.
Yep.
And should we just keep it at our next meeting time at 7 o'clock?
I would be perfect with that.
What
So
would be the date? What's the-
it's
June
June 1st is the first Tuesday of the month.
That should be.
So we would have no meeting. What we would do is not even have an agenda. We would just have a public forum, so we would have to call the meeting to order because we still have a quorum, but I wouldn't have any kind of items. And then I would just ask the chiefs, the fire chief and the EMS chief, to provide maybe a written report that I could share with all of you via email, so that way you're up to date. We don't want to leave our partners out, but this way it would open it up just for a public forum. We'll call the meeting to order and then just have an open discussion.
Yeah, they could maybe even have a few minutes on what they
Yeah.
do and recruit opportunities. Like,
Well, and maybe we could just simply do that. I'll include them in the agenda, and then they could just give a
I think
report to
that'd
the
be-
public.
I think that'd be great.
Okay, all right.
I have a quick question. Is funding, again, thank you. Is fundraising not an option? Or is, like, in the past, like, it doesn't really
I think
raise?
we talked about it a little bit at the last meeting, and fundraising is an awesome thing. But this is sort of a little out of the realm of that. This is sort of like a priority, almost kind of like an emergency, and so we just felt we were responsible to the village and to the people that live here in the police department. We just get that done, and we can fundraise for all kinds of fun.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what has worked well in the past is different community nonprofits like the Optimists or the Small New Club have made grants, like to the DARE program or to this program. I think that's fine to ask for. I think this is a basic tenet of, taxation and what it's for. Public safety is important to everybody. So, I do think there's probably some other village stuff that as a board.
Well,
would be very-
Right.
Yeah, like for instance, our speed trailer is dated. It's
That's
actually,
a beautiful
yeah, so
fundraiser.
that would be a great fundraiser idea. I know Scott's still on and he takes care of our trailer, and it's at end of life. I mean, it
How old is
doesn't.
the trailer?
Scott, can you tell us how old the trailer is? Not sure he's.
Well, it's called old.
Yeah, it's old. So that would be a nice idea for fundraising there. And there's other avenues we could do, but I think I'm with us. I think we need to put this as part of our budget and because we don't want the fundraising to be a topic every 5 years.
No.
I mean, then they're gonna, you know, I think that there'll be an expectation of that. I think this is, I mean, if there was any program that was more important, body cams would be at the top of the list, in my opinion. I think that this is, it's what is expected of us through accountability and transparency. It just is. That's the world we police in now. And so it's important that we stay up the trend. And we're way behind all the other agencies. And so I think it's important that we make this a priority. So I think if I'm hearing everybody right, we'll get the American Legion, do a public forum. I will include still leaving the cross area EMS and CP Fire still in to give us a little bit of a report for the public, but we will keep this agenda very short to just allow for people to speak. We will promote it and try to get people to come to it.
Is there gonna be some extra promotion to encourage people?
Yeah, I mean, we put it out on Facebook and I know that our village board the village puts it out on their site. So, I mean, we get it out.
I think social media will be the way to get it out.
But maybe we'll, like, a couple weeks before, we'll start kind of really hammering it out so people can really put it on their radar. And you guys word of mouth. I mean, maybe encouraging people to come and just get educated about it. I know that's what I've been doing is, hey, if you're interested, please come to these meetings. So, okay. And then I think we were thinking at least 2 public forums to give people another opportunity. So maybe we can decide that in July if it's going to be, maybe do a different location, maybe a different time. I mean, I don't know.
Or keep it open based on what we hear at the first meeting.
Yeah.
If there's overwhelming support,
Then maybe there's
maybe
no
we
need.
just say, okay,
That's it.
that's it.
It can almost go both ways.
Like too much.
You know, it's like if no one shows up,
Right.
people are just assuming that we have them
Yeah.
and, yeah.
So what I think I'll do is, so I had kind of put down that June would be our finalizing body worn camera policy. I think I'm going to push that to the end because we may actually identify something that a community member brings up and says, hey, have you thought of this? And we may not have thought of that.
I also,
So I think that's kind of
with
important.
regard to the policy, there's a lot of professionalism going into the policy right now. And Jay's put in his input and we'll review it. And I think at some point you gotta say, this is good too.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
get it done.
Yeah, I mean, you can create a policy that just kind of is like, well, you don't want to create a policy that the officers can't really get from their brain, that it causes so much like, can I do this? Can I not? Should I? You can't create policy like that. And so you can't, and then the other things, you can't micromanage staff. You just can't do it, especially every situation is different. Every situation is handled differently by different officers. So I think I'll just push that to the very end, just in case we identify some stuff through the public. And then we'll do that in August right before we do our recommendation, or September.
And maybe just one other little comment / question. The June 1st date, I don't know how Candace or how other parents might feel, but it's pretty crunch at the end of the school year. At Tuesday night, got a lot of sports, a lot of different things going on. I don't know. I don't have a problem leaving it there, just attendance wise, I don't know.
No,
If it's better to push it to school being out.
That's the last week of, that is the last week of school for everyone. I know we're on a timeline.
And then the July meeting would also be somewhere around
It's
before
the
if
middle
I
of
have to
summer.
leave, so I don't know.
I mean,
Maybe we could have more like mid or late June.
I'm thinking what about middle of?
On a Tuesday night, I think we'd have better attendance.
Like,
So it's not the last
How about June 8th?
I think we'd have better attendance June 8th.
It's the day after my birthday, so.
So you're responsible to bring cake then, for sure. June 8th?
I think June 8th would be better personally.
Okay.
I don't know, I'm busy with school and stuff.
When is school?
June 4th.
June 4th. So let's say June 8th at 7 PM.
And I'll work with
Public.
the Legion contact and work with you.
Okay. We'll just kind of pencil that in for public forum. If for whatever reason American Legion has something going on that day, then may have to change the location. but I would hope that we can do that. So June 8th at 7 PM, public forum. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
I would accept your motion to adjourn by a second.
I'll second.
Lori with the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Political action.